So today we're going to be talking about the Israel-Iran conflict, what exactly is happening, and if there's any chance that it leads to a larger war involving more than just Israel and Iran. Now there is a very long and extensive history between these two countries going all the way back into the 80s, 90s, and to the present day. This video will not be going over the history, but more so of what has happened in the past few days. I would recommend that after all of you watch this video, go read into the history, do your own research, and then formulate your own opinion. But anyway, if you guys do enjoy today's video and find it helpful, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you didn't see the live stream yesterday, I announced that we are doing Daily Upload Week Part 2. So there will be videos all throughout this week from Sunday to Saturday, and then Daily Upload Week will officially be over. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump straight into this video. So if you've somehow missed it, recently Israel launched a series of attacks on Iran, with the reason being over the advancement of Iran's nuclear program, which has been a thing of controversy for many years. Now I do want to say real quick, I just want to give my personal opinion after reading into the event. I'm not too sure if this could lead into a larger war, maybe between Israel and Iran for sure, but as far as foreign powers getting involved, I don't think it's too plausible at this point. The United States in particular has said that they are not interested in getting involved in any kind of war with Iran. Now of course the US doesn't always have the best of track records when it comes to being honest about their intentions. Just because the US won't put their own troops onto Iranian soil doesn't mean that they won't help Israel do optics, surveillance, logistics. Because those two countries are allies, it's likely that there will be some coordination on the US's part with helping Israel against Iran, but as far as actual direct involvement by the US, I don't think it's going to happen. But there is some interesting information about that we will cover here in a few seconds. So let's go ahead and jump over to our first article. Now the first source we're going to be looking at is from NBC News, and we're using their site to really just look at the timeline. We're not looking at any opinionated articles, so we don't have to worry about any kind of bias or anything. We will look at other sources too, so we're not just going to use one source. And of course, my recommendation to all of you is that when you're doing research on real world events, use multiple sources, and also make sure to fact check the information that you are receiving. That also includes me. Make sure to fact check me. If you think something sounds wrong, feel free to correct me in the comments. I encourage it. I don't want to give out misinformation, but there's always a chance that I miss something or I get something wrong. So once again, make sure to fact check your information, and let's go ahead and start reading. So this conflict started on the 13th of June, and essentially what has happened here is that Israel has launched a series of missile attacks on Iran, and Iran of course has returned fire. So right now it's just a bunch of missile attacks between the two. Israel is targeting Iran's nuclear facilities and military command, and Iran is targeting Israeli defenses as well as their offensive weapons which they are using against Iran. But I'm just going to start scrolling through this live timeline here. Once again, this is from NBC News. But as far as the major information sources we're looking at, the G7 met not too long ago, and they affirmed Israel's rights to defend itself, and they called Iran the principal source of regional instability. And just as a reminder, the G7 is the US, Canada, the UK, France, Germany, Italy, and Japan. One of the more interesting things that has come up, and something that I want to bring to your attention, is the fact that the President of the United States is currently orchestrating a meeting with his Security Council in the Situation Room in the White House. He left the G7 meeting early. He wants the National Security Council in the Situation Room when he gets there, as I said. And then the US Defense Secretary will be there, as well as Secretary of State. So this doesn't necessarily mean that, the US is about to go to war or get involved, but it could be a signaling sign of such. These are usually the early stages of what you do when you're preparing to either oversee a conflict, which is what the US is I'm 99% sure that's what they're doing. Or, there's the 1% chance where they're starting to prepare for something. I don't think that's what's happening here. I could be wrong. Hopefully I'm not. No American wants another war in the Middle East. I don't think, at least. But it's not really about us at this point. But now we're going to go ahead and head on over to the BBC, and we're going to see what they're saying about the Israel-Iran conflict. This is an actual article, so, there's a chance that some of the information in here could be biased. I'm not going to be actively searching it out or seeking it. I mean, of course, if I see something that is blatantly wrong, I'll point it out. But once again, diversify your sources. Don't listen to just one person. Make sure you diversify, like I said. Here's a quick little map of the strikes so far. So most of Israel's attacks have been on the capital of Iran, which is Tehran. But as you can see, they've also targeted other, presumably military institutions across the nation of Iran. And then you can also see the retaliatory strikes that Iran launched right back at Israel. Some on their capital, Tel Aviv, but also in the north of the country, presumably also targeting military targets. It's also important to mention that this is actually actually an official operation by Israel. Their Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has called it Operation Rising Lion, which, as you can see, targets the heart of Iran's nuclear program. The Israeli military said that it launched strikes on dozens of military targets, including nuclear targets in different areas of Iran. So, like I said, you can see that in this map here. But we're also going to look at Iran's response because they did respond. And the response by Iran has been a little bit more interesting than a lot of people anticipated. Of course, when you're going to launch a missile attack on a country, obviously you're going to get hit back. When it comes to justifying that, there's a ton of ways that both sides can justify that. There's always two sides to the conflict. So once again, I want to encourage all of you to do your own research, see what both sides of the story are taking, and then cross-check it with actual facts, and then come with your conclusion. I'm not really here to give you a conclusion. I'm here to basically just inform you, tell you what the top sources are saying, and then, encourage you to further research this on your own. So as for Iran's response, their supreme leader has called it a declaration of war, and that Israel should anticipate a severe punishment. So that was presumably the retaliation strikes we saw against Israel. Another thing that Iran said, and this is probably why a lot of Americans are concerned, is that Iranian foreign ministry said that the US government, as the primary patron of this regime, will also bear responsibility. So they're referencing the fact that the US is an ally of Israel and often supplies weapons and other supplies to it. Now let's talk about what happened just before the strikes. So before Israel attacked Iran, there was a series of talks that were due to happen between the US and Iran to figure out Iran's nuclear program. So just for a little bit of background context so that this makes sense, Iran has always wanted to create its own nuclear weapons. Iran feels that it is entitled to have its own nuclear program and nuclear bombs. And there are multiple reasons for that, some of which you might be able to justify, some of which you may not be able to justify. It just depends on how you view the overall situation. There are claims and reports that Israel possesses nuclear bombs of their own. So in that case, it would make sense that Iran would want to also have nuclear bombs. That's called nuclear deterrence. A good example of nuclear deterrence is the entirety of the Cold War. Both the United States and the Soviet Union had nuclear bombs, thousands upon thousands of them, enough to destroy the world multiple times over, but they never launched them. They got close a few times to launching those bombs, but they never actually launched them, and that is nuclear deterrence. There's also MAD, which is mutually assured destruction. What that means is that if you blow me up, I'm blowing you up, and we're probably going to end the world. It's kind of crazy as it sounds, but that is just a basic definition of it. If you have nukes and you use them against me, I'm going to use my nukes against you. Basically emptying out a whole magazine on them. Crazy stuff. But Iran probably wants to get to the MAD point. They also probably want to get to the nuclear deterrence point. Israel doesn't want Iran to get nuclear because Israel feels as if that if Iran does get a nuclear bomb, then Israel is going to be the one that gets hit by it. And of course, the world is anti-nuclear. Nobody wants any country to build any more nuclear bombs. I think we can all agree that nuclear bombs are not a good thing. Sure, there are instances where nuclear deterrence prevents any kind of war from happening, but that is assuming that every regime is stable, and that is assuming that every regime has the ethical aspect to not launch a series of nukes against a country due to something that happened. Is Iran one of those countries? We're not sure. Once again, I'd advise you to look into this yourself and then make that conclusion for yourself as well. You could argue that Iran just wants to defend itself, or you can say that Iran, wants to blow up Israel for its actions, or, what it's done with Palestine or what's happening in Gaza. There's just a whole bunch to it. I'm not going to dive into it because it can get a little bit dicey. There's a lot of mixed opinions, a lot of information out there. So once again, I'm leaving that to you. I want to stay as unbiased as possible in this video. So as for the world leaders' responses, as we know, the United States has said that they are not involved with this operation that Israel has carried out. I do actually believe that America First is at work in this case. That's what it appears as on the surface level, at least. I don't know if there's any underlying connections that we can be found. I think we'll actually figure that out pretty soon. But then of course I could be wrong. So we'll just have to keep watching as information comes out, see if anything leaks out. And if it gets worse and I was really, really wrong, then we'll make another video and we'll talk about it. So Russia is an ally of Iran. So obviously they have called out Israel for their strikes on the country. And they also want to express their willingness to provide mediation services in order to prevent further escalation of tensions. Oman has held Israel responsible for further escalation and all the consequences that come with it. And then finally, the UK, France, Australia, and China were among the nations that expressed concern over the escalation and called for calm. So here's a quick little map of Iran's nuclear program and all of their nuclear facilities. These pretty much line up with the strikes that we saw on the map above earlier, but Israel was mostly going after their research facilities as well as their enrichment plants, and I believe the conversion plants as well. Could be wrong on that one. So now we're going to step away from the informational part of the video and we're going to do a quick little what if scenario. We're going to talk about how easy this could go or how bad this can go. So as it is, I think the easiest way out of this is that they just both stop bombing each other and we act like it never happened. I mean, that's usually what happens with Western nations, at least. We're just going to pretend this didn't happen. Iran probably won't forget it, and Israel knows that Iran won't forget it. So no matter how you really look at it, it's going to stay around. This is going to have consequences for both countries. But can it actually escalate to full-on war? Now, the first problem is that Israel and Iran don't border each other. If Israel and Iran did border each other, there'd probably be more than just 2 nuclear bombings in the history of the world. But luckily, they don't border each other. Or is that luckily? Because there are a ton of nations between the two, and we have to talk about the fact that Iran is funding military groups across the Middle East. And according to many governments, intelligence agencies, and other analysts, Iran is apparently helping and funding out the groups of Hezbollah, Hamas, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the Houthis in Yemen, and many other military groups across the Middle East, including those in Iraq and Syria. And then, as I said earlier, Yemen, Palestine, and Lebanon. So when we're considering the groups that are within these other countries, this is the range of enemies that Israel would be fighting up against. Now, no, Israel would not be going to war officially with these countries. They would be going to war against the groups within them that are once again propped up by Iran, or funded by Iran, I should say. Many of us have heard about the situation in Yemen and the Red Sea with everything that's going down there with the groups. That's already an issue, and the US and some of its allies are actively in this area trying to sort it out with military measures. So I mean, if this does escalate between Israel and Iran, there is a chance that the West somehow gets involved, not in a direct declaration of war, but with other methods that are kind of like acts of war, but not full-on war. It's really interesting how modern warfare works, because it really doesn't work. It's not like conventional warfare like it was in World War II or whatever. You can launch missiles and strike a nation, but you technically won't be at war with them. So the whole, declaring war thing might be a thing of the past at this point. But as far as like other countries that would support Iran's cause or Israel's cause, as I said, for Israel, the Western nations, more specifically the UK, France, and the USA, it does appear the US is trying to stay neutral, but we'll see if that changes. There's a chance that it does, but there's also a good chance that it doesn't. Iran likely wouldn't see any help from other countries at this point, but there has been a few countries that have called out their support for Iran in their case to defend themselves. I believe Saudi Arabia was one of them, as well as Oman, like I said earlier. I'm sure Qatar also said something of similar words. Israel doesn't really have any regional allies in this area. Their allies are mostly in Europe and then in North America. So who would win in an actual war between these two? There likely wouldn't be a victor. It is mostly dependent on who responds. If the West responds, likely Israel. If all of these groups in these different countries across the Middle East respond and the West stays out, it's likely that Israel could have some issues. I don't know if it literally could fall. I don't think it's possible because there wouldn't be an army fighting against it and invading it. But if Israel felt threatened enough, then there's a chance that, maybe they use those nuclear bombs that they have. If they have them, they claim that they don't have nuclear bombs. There are many sources out there that say otherwise. So once again, this is mostly just me blabbering on about possibilities. The main point though is for you guys to do your own research and make your own conclusions, not based off of what I said, but based off of what you learn on your own. But that will do it for today's video. Just a short little informational thing. I didn't really go super deep into it. I just wanted to give you the general facts of what has happened, because honestly nowadays there's so many just misinformation, disinformation that is spread across social media, and a lot of people do get their news from social media. So I just want to clear any of that up, and like I said, do your own research. Anyway, if you guys did find this video informational and helpful, make sure to leave a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you're new. We'll be live tomorrow, Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, doing a fixing up this map actually. Currently this map is blank and has nothing on it, and all it has is a NATO layer, which I don't even use. So we're going to be adding some new stuff to it. It's going to be super fun. We're going to add some capitals, maybe do a terrain map, and I'll be talking to you guys as well, so make sure to stop by if you can. Anyway, once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. And of course, thank you to all our super fans. This includes Serminator, IC Static FN, CTG on YT, Ixco, Euroball, Augusto, A Norwegian, RS, Gail Martinez, America and Canada and UK, Zaylance, the leader of the AZO, Freezioi, Laser Taze, Pablo Sigma Cat, Death Strider X, Hammer Toad 45, and of course, DW Cool Dude. Once again, thank you guys.